see if I can do this. Okay. I told myself I'd try to finish by 11:05. Whew. That's 20. I don't know if I can do 20 minutes. Maybe 25, guys. Alright. We have 2 more sermons to go, including today, and we've been talking about the nuts and bolts of evangelism and why we are called to share the gospel. Today, what I want to do is talk to you about some of the more difficulties about evangelizing. Okay? There are difficulties when it comes to evangelizing. If you were to ask people why they don't share the gospel, you'd probably hear 2 reasons, 2 answers, okay, to why we may not share the gospel. Number 1, it's because I'm scared that people will think of me as weird, and I'm scared I'll get rejected if I share the gospel. Okay? Number 2, I'm scared to share the gospel because I don't want to mess up. And if I mess up, then maybe my friends or the people I share it to will never believe, and that makes me poor Christian. I think those are probably one of the 2 biggest reasons why people do not share the gospel. Okay? And they are both equally hard things to overcome, and those are legitimate, let's say, fears. Okay. Why? Well, number 1, I think many of us, actually all of us, there are very few people who don't care about being rejected. True? Right? There are probably very few people. Most of us want to be well-liked. Most of us want to impress people. And if you don't care about that, right, at the very least, okay, you want to go through life, with people thinking that you are, a stand-up person. Okay? Or, you hope that no one ever says bad things about you. Okay? This happens all the time, right? I mean, isn't this why? Okay? I know everyone is dressed slightly differently, okay, but in the context, all right, of your school and of your friends, okay, I bet you if I went to your school and I saw your group of people, they all probably dress similar, okay? There are probably similar styles or similar brands of clothes that you wear. Guys, a little bit less so. Some guys tend to care. And there are some guys who just don't care, right? This is especially amongst girls. Okay, and what do? Right? You dress similar. Why? Because you want people to like you. To like you. You want your friends to think that you're cool, or you're at least with it. All right? Guys, it may not be clothes. It might be something else, right? If you were hanging out with my group growing up in high school, you better have known your sports. Okay? You better know your NBA knowledge. Because if you didn't, we would make fun of you all day long. All day. Okay? One way or another, no one wants to be rejected. Because being rejected means what? It's a mark on you as a person, is it not? Being rejected means it's a mark on you as a person, and we feel this very deeply. I bet you in some way or form, especially by the time you enter elementary school, you've probably been rejected by fellow classmates in one way or another. Whether they didn't want to play with you on the playground, whether or not they wanted to, you wanted to do like a group assignment. They said, "Oh, you're not part of our group assignment." Okay? And when that happens, it sucks. Like we feel that pain. Okay? Even from a young, early age, right? And so, kind of the embarrassment of that, the pain of that, right, leads us to think like, well, if I put myself out there, I share this gospel, and people reject me, that sucks. Right? It's gonna hurt. So it's understandable. I get it. Right? And second, we live in a culture, okay, where a B+ is an Asian F. Right? A B plus is an Agent F. An A minus is an Agent C. Maybe B. Right? And an A is merely just an A. Right? That's required. That's average. That's what everyone should be getting. Right? And so, we have that culture of having to conform above and beyond, the norm in our schools. But not just in our schools. You feel this pressure just everywhere. Okay? You can ask your parents. You can ask some of our older brothers and sisters, our teachers about this, right? We live in a city in Silicon Valley, in an area where it's not just good enough to just be good. Okay? You have to stand out. Right? If you're an engineer, you have to stand out. You can't just be like, I make software and blah, blah, blah. No. You have to be exceptional. You have to make something creative. Okay? Oh, you made this app? Well, I made another app. And it's like 10 times better. Okay? That is how the companies are in the Silicon Valley. We're always trying to one-up each other. Innovate. If you don't innovate, then you're nothing. And so a lot of times then, we bring that mentality into evangelism. It's like, oh my gosh, that's what we have to do, right? God will only like me, right? God is only going to say, well done, my good and faithful servant, if I convert someone to Jesus. Or if I persuasively defend and share the gospel. And so we put it on ourselves, on our own shoulders, this crazy expectation. And so no wonder why many of us are scared to share the gospel. Because when you compare it to that expectation, that standard, we fall short. Very short. And we put it upon ourselves to have to change someone. Which if you actually think about is unreasonable. It's actually an unreasonable expectation. But I can understand, I can see why we will feel that way. Because we're talking about, in one sense, in grand scheme, life and death, right? And I can see how our minds would wander into, well, I don't want to be the person that's screwed up. And led someone to not accept the gospel. And therefore, when I meet God or when I reflect back on my life, I'm that guy who couldn't do this. And so therefore, I must be a bad Christian. So we understand why, some of these things are so hard to overcome. But let's see what the Bible has to say about these difficulties of evangelism. 1 Corinthians was written by Paul to the church in Corinth. Now, as I told you guys many times, Paul is the superstar of missionaries. Okay? I'm talking about he's Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Larry Bird, okay, Usain Bolt, Michael Phelps, alright? Whatever her name is, the swimmer who won all those goals this year? Ledecky. All rolled up into one. When it comes to evangelizing, when it comes to missions, that's who Paul is. He's the superstar. Okay? And so he planted this church in Corinth, and this letter was written because the Corinthian church had a lot of problems. Okay? They had a lot of problems. They had a lot of infighting. Okay? People were super prideful about the knowledge that they had. And, this is how bad it got. It got to a point where, there were all these different pastors who were helping the Corinthian church, and some of them were like, well, I'm with Apollos, right? That's my guy, right? He's better than your guy. And then they'd be like, well, I'm with Paul. I'm with this guy. That's how bad it got. This infighting, this bickering. Okay? And so Paul writes this letter to kind of basically lay it out and, get them to see how stupid they are. But in a gracious way. Okay? And so Paul tells them, he actually tells them, if you look at the first 16 verses, he'll say, he even says it. Paul says, I'm glad I didn't baptize many of you. He says it, right? Because he's just like, oh my gosh, I have to write this letter here, oh man. Alright, these guys are being idiots. Oh, well, I love them, so I'll write this. So he tells them, I'm glad I didn't baptize you guys. Okay? And he says, then he reminds them of what they are called. He says, do you understand who you really are? You guys are bickering, you guys are fighting, you guys have all this puffed up pride. And to kind of have an answer to that, he shares the gospel. And he says, do you guys not remember? Okay, you guys are all about this knowledge, all about this person or that person. But do you guys remember? Okay, the gospel. When I preached the gospel to you guys, I didn't preach with eloquence, with smooth talk. Okay, I wasn't charming. It says that in verse 17. Right? But he says, but do you remember that it wasn't because of my words or how knowledgeable I was? Back then in Corinth, it was a very nice city, a very powerful city. And for Greeks, Greek culture loved rhetoric. Have you guys heard of rhetoric? Right? It's basically speeches. Okay? They really love people who speak really, really well. They're all about that. And so Paul says, I didn't come with any of that. But do you remember you were still saved? Then he goes on. He says, well, the cross, do you not remember that the cross is folly or it's foolishness for the wise? Because remember, Corinth is a place, it was a culture place. Okay? Think of it as New York, and where all the cultures, all the art, all the smart people, all of that, right? Or even San Jose. And he says, the cross is foolishness to the wise. Do you not remember that even with all the wisdom, that people have attained, they still don't know God? So what did God do? He chose something foolish like a cross. Because remember, a cross is not something awesome. I mean, now you have people wear, cross necklaces and cross this, and they make it look really nice. But remember, if you're a Greek person, you understand that, you don't talk about the cross. You know why? The cross is for convicts. The cross is for murderers. The cross is for criminals. Okay? That would be the modern day equivalent of the electric chair. Okay? It's like we talk about the electric chair. Hey, yeah! Isn't that so awesome? And you probably look at me like, you're crazy! But God chose the cross. And he keeps talking. And then he goes and he says, Greeks seek wisdom. Jews seek signs. What does he mean by that? Jews, at the time, are looking for, they're a more pragmatic type of people, down-to-earth people, and so they're looking for visible evidences of God. Okay, and Paul's saying, well, Jews were seeking signs of God's return. Okay. And the ironic part is, there were signs. Jesus fed the 5,000. Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. Jesus did a lot of stuff, a lot of crazy stuff in front of their eyes. Still didn't believe. Greeks seek wisdom. Like I said, this is where we get Aristotle, Plato, Socrates. Okay? Some of our greatest thinkers. Western civilization, we can thank the Greeks for a big part of Western civilization. A lot of our wisdom comes from the Greeks. A lot of our math comes from the Greeks. Right? He says, so for Greeks, that's what they cherish. He said, and yet, both of those things, when you come face to face with the cross, it is a stumbling block. Okay? Then he tells them, do you guys not remember? Were you chosen because you were smart? Were you chosen because you were of noble birth? Because you're part of, the elite, the 1%? Were you chosen because you were rich? No, he says, actually, you were actually of the poorest. You were the dumbest. You're the most foolish. And yet you came to know this gospel. Not because you're smart, because you were deemed foolish. So why does he do this? So he presents this thing, that's what we read, right? And he basically is telling them, you need to stop squabbling. You need to stop infighting, because the infighting is because you guys think you're better than each other. But you not remember, all of you. That's what he's saying to the friend. All of you will consider the weak, and the poor, and the foolish. And you came to the cross that way. And you lost. So he's using that gospel to kind of tell them this is why we should stop fighting with each other. Take away our pride. Okay? So that's kind of the context of this passage. Now, how does this help with evangelism? It seems like, okay, thank you for this lesson about pride. But how does that help us? Well, if we read, Paul reminds us of the craziness of the gospel. And how even for Paul, it wasn't his eloquent words that changed people. It was the message of Jesus and the cross. You know what? So number one, there's an inherent craziness in the message. And this is crazy because Paul, if you ever read Paul, he can be confusing at times, but he is super brilliant. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong here. He is super brilliant. If you read Acts, we talked about it, how he preached to the Athenians, right? This guy was able to understand Athenian culture and therefore share a gospel message that was contextually relevant to the Athenians. This guy is smart. Okay? He can be eloquent at times. But what's crazy for us is he's reminding us that even for Paul, especially when he came to Corinth to share the gospel, in chapter 2 it talks about how much fear he came with sharing the gospel. Because remember, this is a smart place. This ain't no dumb place, right? And he says that I spoke to you in words that you cannot understand. And if you actually think about the message of the cross itself, you know what the message of the cross is? The world sucks. We suck. Jesus is God, and he came in and became a man, lived the life we couldn't live, was holy, perfect, and everything, and then he died on the cross, but then he rose again. That's the part. He rose again, back to life, forever, and ever, and ever. You take those 5 elements, the first 3, okay, I can understand that, but he died on the cross, and then he rose again from the dead. That is a crazy message. Back then, they thought it was a crazy message, because the Greeks were like, what the heck? No one ever comes back from the dead. That's stupid. It's a crazy message today. Number one, there is an inherent craziness in the world, in the eyes of the world, for this message. And because of that, this is why the cross looks like foolishness to the wise. Not just to the Corinthians, but to people in San Jose. Because we live in a smart culture. Everyone has a master's degree. It's not just it's not even just like a undergraduate degree. Everyone has a master's degree. Everyone is super smart. Everyone has a 4.0 GPA. So we don't live in a time unlike the Corinthians. So we have this crazy message, and you know what? It will look foolish. So I'm sure you guys are probably looking for okay, so how do we not get rejected? Then the answer is, we will get rejected. Part of the message. You will get rejected for this. Because you actually start thinking about it in terms of the way the world thinks, the cross is foolish. But to kind of help you with this, even though Paul had the best word sometimes, in the Athens, if you ever read Acts and you read the part about Athens, I mean, he has a killer sermon. Like, if I could preach like that just one time in my life, I'd be like, thank you, Lord. You want to know how many people came to believe? Because back in the day, people would just come up, right? They would have this like big forum, and people would just share their ideas. And so all these people would be there. So imagine all the smart men of the city coming to hear Paul. You want to know how many people believed that day? Like 2 or 3. That means a whole crowd of maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 people rejected. It's part of the territory. But I'll go even further. Want to know how many people got saved with Jesus? Here's a crazy thought. Here's some food for thought. Did you know that Peter and Paul converted more people to Christianity than Jesus ever did in his lifetime here on earth? Think about it. He had crowds and crowds and thousands of people. Remember, he had to feed 5,000 people. That of just men. So including all the children and women, you're looking at a lot of people. Okay? Maybe 10,000 people hearing his messages, sharing the gospel. The kingdom is near. Repent, therefore the kingdom is near. All this stuff. You want to know who stayed with him? I bet you there was only a handful. Well, you know the 12 disciples. And maybe some of the other disciples, what? My guess is like, what, 100? 100 out of 10,000 people? I'm just guessing these numbers here. But that's not a high percentage, is it? Of conversion. The one that we proclaim, Jesus who is God, who became man, who can do miracles. Like, we can't even do that. All we have is a message. He had miracles. It's like, pew, turning water into wine. Okay? Ha! Raising Lazarus from the dead. Ha! Feeding 5,000 people with, some fish and bread. Making lame people rise. Blind people see. Curing leprosy with just words or with a mere touch. And only a handful of people believe. What does that tell you? If Jesus is going to get rejected, it comes with the territory for us. We will be rejected. It doesn't feel like, okay. But let me continue. Second. Okay. But I'm scared. Okay, fine. We'll be rejected. I can deal with that. Okay. But I'm scared I'll do a poor job sharing the gospel and I'll blow it. The crazy part is, you know what this passage is telling us? He says, I didn't come with eloquent words. I came with the foolishness of the cross. And here's the crazy part, guys. He's telling this to the Corinthians. You believed. People come to faith not because we have the best presentations, not because you're the best talker or the smoothest talker, but because when we give them the opportunity to hear the gospel, that's an opportunity for them to encounter God Himself. That's what gets people saved. They encounter God, and God opened their eyes. That's what actually gets people saved. Why does Jesus do, or why does God do this? You might be wondering, oh my goodness, this is foolishness. I want to throw my stand away right now. Why? Not so that we can be somebodies, but because we are nobodies. Then it's not on us, for it's to show the power of the gospel. That's the truth. Because when we can't take credit for it, when we can't take credit for changing or making someone believe, we realize that the credit goes to the power of the message itself. The credit goes to Jesus. So yes, when we share, it will sound foolish to many. God knows, I've told you this many times, right? People have yelled at me, saying, why are you sharing this crap in college? Like, don't get me wrong, it hurt. I was just like, it got me angry, it hurt. I was like, I'm ready to throw some punches right now at this guy. There are going to be people who outright reject it. But when we share, whether it's the best presentation or all you can really say is, come to church with me. Jesus is awesome. Please? It's really not our words that make people believe. But it's God's work. Through whatever presentation you have. Because then we are relying on the power of the gospel. It's more powerful than your school. Let me put it another way. If the gospel is dependent upon how well you share it, then when Jesus dies and rises again, that means he's not powerful enough to patch your screw up? That's a problem, isn't it? For a God who can die and rise again, but not powerful enough to cover your screw-ups, that is a God that is not a God at all. Our God is a God who conquered death, which was the hardest thing in the world. If you can do that, then you can use your fumbling gospel messages. Naturally. Save someone. Because the gospel has the power to change lives forever. Not based on your knowledge or presentation, but based on the message of the cross. Because what it does, it is the power to take poor and weak, bumbling fools, like the Corinthians, many of us, and call them into grace. Call them into grace. To God's love. Not based on your abilities, but based on the fact that God loves you. I'll end with this story, real quick. Alright. I have a friend. I've shared this story before, but I love sharing this story. At 18, he left his parents' home. And once he became 18, he left his parents' home. Ended up becoming a panhandler. And you ever see the homeless people who say, we'll work for food, or need $1 for food or whatever, right? That's called panhandling. Okay? So my friend left home, moved down to the SoCal, then became a homeless person. What? And he started to panhandle. Okay? So that kind of sucked. Long story short, one day, a little old lady comes up to him, tells him he needs to go to church. That's our gospel message. Go to church! Now if we were to grade that gospel presentation from an A to an F, I would give it a D for effort. You get some effort, but D in terms of presentation. Okay? It's like, go to church. Jesus saves. It's like, it goes against everything like I would want to do. Like, I would try to contextualize it, how to get to know him, tell him, how does the gospel, how's it relevant for your life? No, none of that. Had this short conversation. Go to church. Because Jesus saves. Then off she went. For my friend, he thought it was foolish. He scoffed. Just like the world does. Stupid. What is that stupid lady talking about? But here's the crazy part. His other homeless friend was like, actually, she's not crazy. You should think about going to church. Right? So here's this. If I were him, I would be like, you're homeless just like me. What the heck? Come on, man. Right? Like, who are you to talk? And yet God uses him. The old lady who was foolish, the homeless guy who was foolish. And you know what he said? He said, you should go to church. And he actually was like, oh. Okay. I went to church. Got saved. Cleaned up his life. Moved back up to San Jose. Got a job. Got married. And now he is living the gospel, sharing it with people. Power of the gospel goes above and beyond our screw-ups and our rejection. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we come before you.